Borada, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're due to start in the next few moments. Thank you. Good morning to you all, and I hope you're all keeping well. And thank you very much for joining us for our preparing to deliver the Level 3 qualification in construction, which is Civil Operations and Groundworks Level 3. We are all still working from home, therefore I apologise in advance for any background noise and any delay in the up and coming slides. You will receive an email with a copy of the PowerPoint, the recording of this webinar and a certificate of attendance after this webinar. You can access the recordings to all previous webinars and register for up and coming webinars on our Skills for Wales website. You will also receive a link to a survey where we would be very grateful if you could take the time to fill in this survey, as your feedback is very valuable to us all. This is what we will be discussing this morning. We will briefly mention why the transformation of these qualifications. We will look at the content of the Level 3 qualifications, specifically at the Groundworks, and the structure of the units, the summary of assessments and employer confirmation guide. And then we will show you the learning resources that are available for you, and then we will also discuss the next steps. And then at the end, there will be opportunities for you to ask any questions, but please type in any questions that you may have throughout this webinar in the questions tab on the right hand side of your screen during the presentation. The presentation should last approximately between 40 to 45 minutes. We do hope that you enjoy what we're about to present. Here are your guest speakers today, so please meet the team. We've got David Pye. David is the Senior Technical Advisor for Building Services and employed directly by City and Guilds. We've got Jason Howe, the Technical Advisor for Construction in City and Guilds. And although we've got Anne Harrod's picture on there this morning, unfortunately she cannot be with us this morning. And Anne Harrod is the Policy Stakeholder and Partnership Manager with City and Guilds. And then finally myself, Ian Roberts, the Technical Advisor for Construction through City and Guilds. So, why the transformation? As we're probably aware, we've covered these slides before, but it's always good just as a gentle reminder for those people who are not too familiar why this is actually happening. In February 2018, Qualifications Wales published the Building the Future report, which was a sector review of the qualifications and the qualification systems in construction and the built environment in Wales. Some of the Qualifications Wales outline findings were that there was inconsistency in assessment practices. Some areas of learning had not effectively been assessed, and learners needed to deal with a range of tasks and to be able to problem solve. And the main one was that the qualifications were not meeting the skill needs of Wales. There was also a need to reduce the complexity of the system that was currently in place, and also a need to improve coherence with clear pathways. The progression routes needed to be clear throughout framework and onto work or higher education. But of course, it also had to be the portability within Wales and beyond and throughout the UK. On this slide, and this will be for you to be able to look back on, it just shows the type of questions that some of the questions that you may have. But I want to go through this slide, as I mentioned earlier. You will be receiving a copy of this presentation. The next slide, which I'm going to show, shows the possibility of the learner journey with the different options for the learner to be able to progress. Here we can see where the learner journey begins. And it actually began in September 2021. But this slide shows what will be happening moving forward from September 2022. Here you can see a learner who is unsuccessful in gaining direct employment as an apprentice will commence the foundation qualification, or they could, if they're not yet ready to commence the foundation qualifications, they could cover a broad level 1 qualification. Now, Qualifications Wales over the last few days have agreed that a level 1 qualification, trade specific, will also be deemed appropriate to be able to move that forward. So whether it's a broad level 1 qualification or a trade specific level 1, what that learner would then do upon successfully completion of that, they would still have to join the following year, which would be September 2023, the foundation qualification. A learner who immediately joins the foundation qualification this September, and then by September 2023 are successful in attaining an apprenticeship, will immediately commence onto the level 3 apprenticeship and continue. A full-time learner who is then unfortunately not successful in gaining employment will then continue onto the progression qualification, which once again is the level 2 qualification. And then after that, successfully completing that, it is envisaged that learners will then gain apprenticeships and then move across onto the level 3 apprenticeship as they're moving forward. The routes are still there. Even if a learner completes and is not yet ready for the foundation, they do the broad level 1 and then go on to the foundation and then onto the progression and so forth. A learner who is successful will commence their apprenticeship, but in doing so, will have to start and work towards the core qualification. The core qualification and the foundation contains exactly the same units, which are 6 mandatory units. And then on top of that, what there is also then is, of course, the foundation learner will do 2 trade-specific areas, whereas the apprentice doing the core qualification would just do the 1 trade area that they're actually working towards. What I would now like to do is pass you on to Jason, who will take you through the next set of slides. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, what we're going to do now is take you through some of the qualification content and show you where the qualifications sit and look at them in a little bit more detail, along with how the units is also structured within our qualification handbooks as well. So just as we see on the screen now, I'm going to kind of work from left to right. As Ian's previously mentioned, you've got the foundation and the core qualification, which sits to the left-hand side, and that contains all of the construction on site and the BSc pathways within it. So for the foundation, learners would do 2 of those trade areas, or if they're doing the core as part of the apprenticeship, they would select the appropriate one aligned to that apprenticeship. And beneath that is the pre-foundation or the level 1 qualifications, again, as Ian mentioned previously. Moving on from that, we then move into progression. And these are the construction progression qualifications. As our colleagues at EAL, they look after the progression qualifications for BSc. And then finally, moving on to level 3, these are the level 3 apprenticeship qualifications, again, for construction. And today, obviously, we're focusing on civil ops and the groundworks at level 3. So that's how the qualifications sit. Just looking into the qualifications, this qualification in particular, in a little bit more detail. Next slide, please, Ian. What we're going to show on screen shortly is the rules of combination. So this basically aligns how the qualification is structured with regards to its units. So we have the 6 common core units, and that's the same across each level 3 qualification, and those are units 301 to 306. And then you've got the trade specific pathway. Again, for this, it's groundworks, and within groundworks, we have 6 units. And within each assessment method, which colleagues will cover shortly, learners must achieve a pass grade or higher in each of the 3 assessment methods in order to be successfully certificated. And for groundworks, the total JLH is 854 hours, and that includes the 76 hours for assessment, which can be delivered by the train provider, but also covered in industry as well. Next slide, please, Ian. So these are as I've previously mentioned, the 6 core units, and these are the same across each level 3 qualification, and each of the units are numbered with a title, and then they have their bespoke aligned GLH, and that GLH is aligned to incorporate all of the content that's contained within that unit so that it can be successfully delivered and assessed accordingly. Next slide, please, Ian. So these are the trade units, as I mentioned previously, for Groundworks. So at the top we have the 6 common core units, which I've just mentioned, and then we have the units aligned to Groundworks and the assessment GLH just at the bottom line there in blue, and that, as I've previously mentioned, collates to a total GLH of 854 hours. So each of the trade units, again, similarly to the core, have their own bespoke aligned GLH in line with the content that needs to be delivered and assessed. Next slide, please, Ian. So just going to have a quick look at how the units are structured. So as you'll see in our qualification handbooks, if you're familiar with City and Guilds qualification handbooks, you know, the structure is pretty much the same as it's always been. There is some new additions which will hopefully be helpful and supportive when tutors are planning and delivering their curriculums. So as we all know, you have learning outcomes, and those are what we class as grouped together chunks of related practical skills and knowledge. And they are presented as the result of the learning process. So it covers exactly what learners need to be able to understand or do, essentially, following all of their teaching and learning. Then you've got the assessment criteria. So this basically breaks down the learning outcome into smaller areas, and this is what is assessed accordingly. Then we have the range. So the range, again, if you're familiar with City and Guilds qualification handbooks, this won't be new. But what the range does, it gives you a breadth of what's required with regard to the specific assessment criterion that is listed above. But the list isn't exhaustive. So if you've got stuff that's bespoke to you as a region, even within Wales, or any additions that you may want to add that you may feel will be beneficial to your learners, then again, that is your prerogative, and it would certainly be advised if you want to do that, and absolutely that would be the way to go. Following on from the range, the next part will cover, so this is how the unit is essentially structured in the qualification handbook. So you have the unit number and title, the GLH, which is aligned to the units we mentioned previously. Then you've got a brief description of the unit, and you can issue this to learners as you're moving into the different units, so they have an understanding of what's coming along the way, and you may want to include that in schemes of learning, etc. Then you've got your learning outcomes, and for this purpose, we're looking at learning outcome 2, which is understanding safe working practices. What you'll see on the next slide is how that is broken down, as I've previously mentioned. So this covers the learning outcome, as I've just previously mentioned, and the criteria and the range. So again, you have the criteria for this, so just picking on 2.1. Beneath that criteria, you have the range, and that again covers the breadth of the criteria. What is new is the delivery outcome section in the qualification handbooks. So this takes the breadth to another level and looks at it in depth of what content needs to be delivered. So again, when tutors and teachers are planning their curriculums and planning the delivery and planning their lessons, this will hopefully be an addition within the qualification handbook, which will certainly support that process. I hope what we've covered there has been helpful to you. I would now like to pass you over. Oh, sorry, additional units. So looking at the civil operations unit, again, you'll see a standardized approach and a standardized format to the core one. So we have the unit number and title, the aligned GLH, unit description, and the learning outcome. And again, what you'll see on the next slide is similarly to what we've just covered on the core one. So same format, doesn't matter what unit, you have the learning outcome, the criteria in the range, and then the delivery outcome, which covers all of the depth of content. And again, this one's bullet pointed, so slightly different to the previous one. Again, hopefully that'll be very supportive to your tutors and staff who are looking to deliver this qualification. Now, I would like to hand you over to my colleague, Ian, who is going to take you through the summary of assessment and the next set of slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Welcome back, everybody. Before we begin, I'm going to now go through the summary of assessment. And this is for the ground worker, level 3 qualification, is assessed using 3 methods of assessment as we move forward. All right, first of all, we've got the on-screen assessment, which you've seen this similar before, but it's got some slight differences between them. It's multiple choice questions, same as the foundation, and like we mentioned earlier, the progression. It's externally set and externally marked, and it's got an overall weighting of 20%. But you will see that this will include two tests, test 1 and test 2, which I will come back to you a bit later. And then we've got the practical project, and this covering the trade area that they are working towards. And this is carried out within industry, set in agreement with the employer and assessed by assessor, which is being employed by the training provider. This will then be externally quality assured and has an overall weighting of 60%. The professional discussion now is new. It's a follow-on really from the guided discussion. We've got the guided discussion at the foundation and progression. This now leads into that professional discussion to be able to move that forward. And this is one externally set and externally marked by a trade-specific member of the awarding organisation. So it'll be external person who'll be doing this. And it's an overall weighting of 20%. We will be going through each method of assessment in the coming slides. But before we move on, I would like once again to reinforce we have an assessment pack detailing the requirements of the assessments that can be downloaded from the Skills for Wales website. Within this slide, I would like to now go through in more depth each method of assessment. The on-screen assessment contains two tests, test 1 and test 2, and can be taken at any stage in the assessment process. Although this is on demand and completed at any time, it is advisable to complete prior to the professional discussion. Test 1 contains 45 questions, and the learner will have 70 minutes to complete. But it may have been completed during their second year, or a learner who may have completed their progression qualification will have achieved, as this is the same test. So that's where we're trying to get the mapping across from the progression to the apprenticeship, so it is a smooth transition. Test 2 is completed in their final year and has 32 questions and has a timing of 50 minutes. The practical project, this is made up of 3 elements or tasks, whichever you'd like to call them. And it's very similar to what we have in the foundation and progression. It contains the planning, the performing, and the evaluating of the 3 criteria that's there. The project is carried out in the realistic working environment. They can select from a number of tasks that are outlined within the assessment pack, which cannot exceed any more than 4 work-based activities. The assessor employed by the training provider will carry out the assessment visits, which will include a minimum of 3 visits. So that assessor is employed by the training provider, like we've mentioned earlier, and will carry out the assessments, and it's a minimum of 3 visits. The professional discussion will be carried out by a member of the awarding organisation and will be occupationally competent in that particular trade area. This will be carried out in a one-time sitting and can be either virtual or face-to-face. The professional discussion will last no more than 40 minutes and will be graded pass to distinction. The learner will need to demonstrate their knowledge, understanding and performance from the occupational standards relevant to their trade. They will also be required to reflect on the practical project they have completed within their discussion. The professional discussion, as a reminder, can only take place once the learner has completed their project and the employer confirmation, which we will go through shortly. They will contain engaging multiple choice question types and styles, and are all online with results received immediately after their assessment. Like we've mentioned, test 1 may have been achieved previously if the learner successfully completed their progression qualification within the same trade. If the learner has not taken the progression qualification, then they will have to sit and achieve both tests. Here you can see on the right of the slide assessment information for test 2. There are 32 questions and they require a minimum of 21 correct responses to attain a minimum of a pass. We are now going to cover in more detail the practical project. A learner will have 12 hours to complete all of their planning, and this may include up to 3 tasks or projects. They have 50 hours to complete to performing and 12 hours to complete the evaluation of the task they have included within the particular project. A gentle reminder that the project cannot include any more than 4 work-based activities. As previous, further information can be located on the website within the practical project section of the assessment pack. Just as a gentle reminder, please don't hesitate to go onto the Skills for Wales website and download or look at the packs and go through them, so at least you're comfortable with what's actually in there. With regards to the professional discussion, here you can see a brief overview of the content and timings. The units we have identified, along with the learner reflection on their practical project. This should help you in supporting the learner in being prepared to meet the external assessor. The project documentation can be available during the professional discussion to help the learner make reference to. And as you can see, the discussion will have to be recorded and captured in a secure GDPR compliant way. And before we move on, to reinforce, the professional discussion will be conducted by a competent external assessor. We are all aware that there is no NVQ within the level 3 qualification. Learners, however, still have to gain the skills, knowledge within industry to carry out and fulfill their role within the construction industry. Within this slide, we can make reference to the employer confirmation and how this will help support the learner in meeting the qualification requirements and attaining their CSCS card. The guide, which I will go through, provides guidance to employers and training providers on how the occupational competency statements set by industry have been met in a few slides further on. This documented when completed will provide employers, federations and industry the confidence that the learner has provided evidence of meeting the occupational competency statements. The overall qualification will be graded pass through to distinction to help differentiate the achievement between learners. Provisional grades for the practical project will undergo internal and external quality assurance. The professional discussion, the external assessor will confirm the grade, and the overall final grade will be issued by City and Guilds. Learners can resit assessments or make resubmissions when they fail to achieve a pass grade in any of the assessments. And further guidance on the resits, etc., can be found and located in the assessment pack. What I would now like to do is provide a brief overview of the resit resubmissions. Taking the on-screen assessment, although there are no limits to the number of times a learner can take you should provide additional learning prior to a retake. When a retake is taken, the learner can still achieve the full marks and grades available. The practical project, here you can see the opportunities. And rather than having to resit the entire project, they can retake or take the criteria that they failed. For example, regarding the planning, if they do not meet the threshold pass, then they can resubmit the criteria that they have failed and will be reassessed within the resubmission. The professional discussion, when a learner fails to successfully achieve, then they are permitted to resit and must resit the whole professional discussion. Once again, however, on a resit, the learner can achieve the full range of marks, and any resits have to be booked via walled garden. It's crucial, although there's resit opportunities available, that the learner is not put forward until they are comfortable and you are comfortable that they have a good opportunity of achieving minimum pass grade to be able to move forward. I'm now going to go onto the employer confirmation guide. But before I begin, may I take this opportunity to say thank you to all stakeholders for their valuable contribution and feedback we have received, and that has helped the consortium in shaping what I am about to present. Employer confirmation is part of the learner journey and will help strengthen the relationships between employers, centres and the learner. This is only part of the learner journey, and the process will enhance the employer role in the delivery of the new apprenticeship qualifications in the construction and built environment sector. Excuse me. As we are aware, the learner will spend a considerable amount of their time in the realistic working environment. And the purpose of the confirmation sign-off is to capture the activities and provide stakeholders, including trade bodies, confidence that the learner is occupationally proficient and has covered the full range of the relevant standards to allow the learner to progress to the final part of their assessment process, the professional discussion. Excuse me. Although there is no NVQ within the new apprenticeship model, a learner will still provide a range of evidence that allows the centre to check the employer confirmation sign-off is valid. Upon successful completion of this robust assessment process and the confirmatory sign-off, a learner will then be in a position to attain the relevant skills card. We are aware that the employer confirmation process is new and may raise a few concerns. The consortium have and will continue to provide centres and employers with instructions and the requirements for completing this process. It's also within the employer confirmation guide, but we will be further communicating this at our centre and employer events and can be located on the Skills for Wales website. Here we can see how working collaboratively we can support the learner along their journey that they will require to move forward and progress to that final assessment, the professional discussion. And as you can see on this slide, by working together, employers and centres will provide opportunities that will allow the learner to gain valuable industrial experience and complete the activities outlined within the employer confirmation guide. Whether it be 1, 2 or 3 employers that they will work with, the learners throughout their apprenticeship, hence the reasons why we have made provisions on the various forms contained within the employer confirmation guide for more than 1 employer to work on the documents. Work-based learning providers and centres will work with employers to guide and support to ensure the occupational competency statement log is being completed correctly. And as you can see, as the pieces start to come together, this is through working collaboratively to ensure the learner journey runs smoothly. This process is to ensure the learner is prepared for their final assessment. And as you can imagine, this hasn't been a smooth journey, as change is always and sometimes very difficult to accept. We have engaged with a considerable number of stakeholders, including micro businesses, medium to large contractors, and federations, including colleges and private training providers. On this slide, you can see the front page, the contents, and the section that is contained within the Employer Confirmation Guide. Whether it be 1, 2, or 3 employers, they will work with the learners throughout their apprenticeship. And this is the main reasons why we have made provisions on the various forms for more than one employer to work with the documents, because we have the shared apprenticeship schemes with Couplr and the Apprentice throughout Wales and other parties as well as. The Employer Confirmation Guide will be trade specific and can be located on the Skills for Wales website. The document will be in a writable PDF and can be completed either electronically or hard copy. And the employer confirmation is the responsibility of the employer and the learner working collaboratively with the learning provider. Although not part of the qualification, this has to be completed prior to the learner moving forward to complete their final assessment, which is the professional discussion. I would now like to pass you on to David, who will take you through the next set of slides. So thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Ian, and welcome everyone. Great to be able to present to you all again. I'm just going to take you through a few of the resources slides. Excuse me. In the meantime, as I'm working through this, if you have any questions, please use the questions tab and type those in. We'll try and answer them as we're ongoing, or we'll collate them at the end and we'll answer them then. But please have a think about those and type them in as they come to you. So, excuse me. Our first step is to access this certain information, isn't it? Oh, it's always the case, and this information is on the Skills for Wales website. So we're always taking the opportunity to promote that, just in case there's people still struggling to find some of this information. From there, you will see under the Qualifications tab a list of sectors. Click on your sector, scroll down to the bottom tab, the Titles and Centre tab, and then the Qualification Documents, and here you will find 2 documents, the Handbook and secondly, the Employer Confirmation Sign-Off. The Handbook contains content along with various requirements for the qualification, so it's always best to start at this actual point. You can find various other supporting documents on the website, which covers the qualifications from foundation all the way through to the level 3 qualification. So please try and familiarise yourselves with those. So as we move on to the delivery planner, many of you should be familiar with this form from previous webinars and how to use them to support your delivery of the foundation qualification, but they can also be used for all the other qualifications as well. So please allow time to consider your delivery and your timings, and if you wish to use this document, please feel free to share your thoughts and plans with us if you'd like to talk it through with us, and we can try and provide you some support with that. So moving on to the next slide. As previously promoted, we have a suite of sector books from Hodder Education. To support the new suite of qualifications, Hodder have created free mapping documents to support staff and learners in accessing the related information. So please contact Thomas Stotter direct for more information. His email address is there on the slide. Thank you, Ian. So let's have a look at some of the next steps with these qualifications. This slide, you can see that centre approval commenced in January 2021 with the foundation and progression, and now closely followed with the level 3 qualification. Provided you haven't already gained centre approval, the following slides will help provide a broad overview of the approval journey for centres. As we are aware, these are brand new qualifications and an offline application has to be completed. If not already done so, it is available in the Become a Centre section of the Skills for Wales website, and it's for all qualifications for both awarding bodies. Centres only need to complete one application. On completion, it should be forwarded to skillsforwales.quality@cityandguilds.com. This section also contains an FAQ document, and that's really helpful. So where does that take you? Well, centres can expect a decision around approval within 30 working days of completing the application. Please note, separate approvals must be submitted for sub-centres. So if you have some extra sub-centres, it's a separate approval. Centres do not need to invent new documentation for these qualifications. Much of the documents you already have should be suitable, just be updated and adapted. So your IQA planners and sample plans, maybe just a little tweak and they'll be perfectly suitable for these. So it shouldn't mean you have to change all your previous documents. Excuse me. So moving on. Here we can see some of the future training and events we are holding. So these are brand new qualifications, and we recommend you take the time to register onto one of the events, especially the CPD events we are holding in the next few months. So they've been set up with your centres. So our advice is, if you're not aware of those or which one you're invited to, please speak to your managers back at your centres and ask them about the CPD events. As you can see also, we're holding trade-specific webinars. These are the webinars that are ongoing at the moment. And the BSc ones run by our friends and colleagues at EL, the dates will be confirmed for those soon. So, lots of information there. Hope you found the webinar useful so far. Just pause for a brief moment whilst we open up your questions prior to trying to work our way through them and answer any queries you may have. So, if there's questions, feedback, anything you may find useful about these webinars, any queries you have specifically on this, but you've maybe got some other queries around the new qualifications, we're here to answer all of your questions. So please do, if you find the questions tab, just type your question into there. There's not many of us on this webinar today, so we can also unmute you if you prefer to discuss your query. We can unmute you and have a chat, that's fine also. Just whilst I'm waiting for those to come in, just a shout out for our feedback survey. We've put the links in the chat. So if you can click on the chat, please, you should see two links, one in English, one in Welsh. If you can click on the appropriate survey and complete that, please, it really does help. I know we ask for this all the time, but all your feedback is logged centrally. We can look at trends across other trades, other events, other webinars that we've run. It's all logged and we can act accordingly. So please do take an opportunity to use those surveys. So I'm just going to click on the questions tab. I don't see any coming in yet. Hopefully that's because we've answered all of them as we've gone through. Whilst I'm waiting for any other questions, Ian, I think we've just got a couple more slides that we can cover now. And then we'll double back to any questions which may come up. So it's really just a shout out for your feedback, which I've already pointed you towards the survey. You'll also get that as part of a follow-up email, but it's probably easier if you just click on that link now. It will open for you. You can always complete it a little bit later. It's only a few questions. And the final slide is around the Skills for Wales email address. Again, if there's anything we've not answered, I can see there's a question coming. I'll drop on that in a moment. But after today, any other feedback, any other thoughts, any queries, please put them all on that email address there. And again, it's centrally logged and it'll be disseminated to the most appropriate person. So just to clarify, can a new learner start straight on the Level 3 Apprenticeship in September 2022? Yes, they can, but Ian, I don't know if you'd like to elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, thank you, David, and yeah, good question. Yeah, commencing September 2022, all new intake of learners starting this particular pathway will commence straight onto the Level 3 Apprenticeship. But what they'll do in that initial year, they'll do the core qualification. working towards. So they'll be working towards the trade area, which is the one particular unit in there, same as the foundation, but they'll be picking up the 6 mandatory units as the same as a foundation learner would do, and obviously still be working on site at the same time. Now, some learners, because of the frameworks, we're just waiting for confirmation of the level 3 frameworks. It's out for consultation. My understanding is it completes on the 4th of March, which is tomorrow. They'll collect all the feedback, and then we'll know hopefully by later next week what the frameworks were going to entail moving forward. But yes, and the other thing that may happen, I apologise, should have said earlier, is that although it's open for registration for colleges, the apprentices may actually start in beginning of 1st of August or the 1st of July. So they're wanting to bring the frameworks back a little bit to 1st of July or the 1st of August, and that will be decided upon the end of this consultation. All right, but they will definitely be ready for colleges to commence this September. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian. Yeah, I've just typed a very brief response to that as well, and on the response I added the links to the survey as well, so just so people can see those. Any other questions, or is there any follow-up questions to that that maybe you're not sure about or you want clarity? As I say, we can unmute you if you prefer. Just drop that into the question if you want to describe your query. Just type that in and we can unmute you, no problem.
Just, David, may I just step?
Please do.
Yeah, for me. I think what we've got to be aware of as well, all the apprenticeships are all classed as level 3s, level 3 qualifications. All right, so don't get confused when you start looking at some of the groundwork unit content. You'll be thinking, well, they're all level 2s. They are in the existing legacy route, but moving forward, they will be deemed as a level 3 qualification in Wales. Thank you.
Thank you. Got a follow-up question. Can we RPL into this qualification? I was just about to type a response. Well, if learners have done the foundation, they won't need to do the core. So it's not RPL as such, but they've already met those requirements, so they won't need to do the core. If they've done the progression, there is some work happening to see if they are exempt from any assessment. So Ian can possibly correct me in a moment, but it's our hope that they will be exempt from exam 1. In terms of RPL the learning, yes, we would recommend that you do that always. If you've taught a learner or a group some content and they move on to another qualification and there's the same content in it, we wouldn't recommend you repeated the same teaching. So that's always the case. So in terms of teaching, yes, always, you're not forced to repeat what you've already delivered. You may need a recap, but in terms of exemption of assessments, I think Ian can possibly answer that a little bit better than myself.
No, I think you've done really well, David, to be honest. I think what we have to remember is when we're RPLing, we're only recognising the prior learning that's taken place. When we're looking at the current legacy qualifications, if they've got a certificate, that'll be deemed as accreditation of prior learning because they'll have achieved something that can again be recognised into the new suite moving forward. What we're currently doing at the moment is we're putting some mapping documents together. So we're mapping a learner that's on a full-time level 2 diploma across to the new level 3, so they're not disadvantaged. That mapping document we're well on with at this moment in time. That'll be in the Welsh as well as English language. We're also doing one for the NVQ as well. So where a learner has completed, we could say really level 2 framework, but it's where the NVQ level 2 maps across. So that will be recognised as well, so they can do the top up or the mop up training. But it's like David said, they still have to drop down and do the assessments that's actually in there. So test 1 and test 2, they would have to complete, plus their on-site project that they'd have to complete, and again the professional discussion. I hope that answers your question. I think David's answered it really well, to be honest, regarding the foundation. If you've got a full-time learner doing the foundation, I think he's answered that question. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a real advantage for a learner when they're on the journey, they have aspirations of a specific trade route, but they don't yet have employment, the foundation qualification is really good because it gives them all those base units, all the foundation units, and it also doesn't ring fence them to their chosen trade area. So they may have done the foundation with the hope of being an electrician, but then got a job in groundworks. Well, that foundation is the same regardless. So it's regardless of whichever trade area they go into, they wouldn't have to do the core qualification. So I think it opens up the doors to all the trade areas following the foundation, where previous qualifications, if they were trade specific, would only give them any exemption in that specific trade. So hopefully it's a real advantage. Confused, if they have RPL from legacy, which exempts a learner from the core, does that mean they can't start level 3 until 2023? Is 2022 only for completion of the core? So no, they don't have. Once you've signed on an apprenticeship, there are 2 qualifications a learner has to achieve. That's the level 3 and the core. If they already have the foundation, which is the same qualification as the core qualification, just that the foundation has 2 trade areas, the core qualification only has 1. But it's up to you if you want to deliver that in year 1 or spread it out over a couple of years. The apprenticeship framework will include both the core and the level 3. I'd probably recommend you did the core in year 1. It makes sense. It has all the base health and safety, working with others, all those units you would normally deliver in year 1 of an apprenticeship anyway. But if a learner's already completed the foundation, you wouldn't need to do that. So,
David, it'd be best if Sian maybe explains it a little bit more, because we might not be picking it up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be. If I can unmute you, Sian, if that helps, and you can maybe describe what your query is in case we've misunderstood. So I've unmuted you this end. It's showing that you're muted your end. So if you're able to click on mute, you might be able to describe if we're misunderstanding.
Provide us with an example that you're referring to.
Yeah, what I was thinking is, if you've got a learner that's been to college and got like a legacy level 2, on the very original diagram that it showed, it looked like that the level 3 only started in 2023, but the core in the level 3 started 2022. So if they're exempted from the core, I'm getting confused whether they can just do straight on to the apprenticeship level 3 in 2022. Does that make sense?
It does now, Sian. Yes. What's actually happening is for this year, what they're looking at is learners who's what you're talking about now. Sorry, and it explains it a lot better to me. Is a learner who's completing a level 2 full-time diploma this year, who moves across to the level 3 apprenticeship, will they have to drop down and do the core qualification? That's the question, I think, isn't it?
Partly that, and also can they then start in September 22, or because, as I say, that original diagram didn't show only the apprenticeship until 2023. It showed core and apprenticeship from 2022, but only apprenticeship for level 3 from 2023. Yeah, so if they're exempted from the core, can they start the level 322 having had that exemption?
What they can do is, if you've got a learner at the moment that's just completed and who's going to complete this academic year a level 2 diploma and gets apprenticeship, moves across, they can start straight onto the level 3 apprenticeship. Yes. Now, what we're looking at is exemption from just for this academic year for them learners, so you don't disadvantage them learners. They're looking at exemptions to the core qualification. That's what they're looking at, because the learner have completed a level 2 diploma. All right, that's not been confirmed as yet, but it's what they're talking, it's what they're discussing at this moment in time. What we've had to do, we've had to put some mapping documents together for a learner that completes a level 2 diploma now and steps straight into the level 3. So that's what we're on with at this moment in time. We're putting them mapping documents together.
Right. Okay.
But my understanding is, okay, at this moment in time, learners who's completing a level 2 diploma, full-time learner, they get employment, they can step across into the new level 3. Yes. And my understanding is, until we get it in confirming, it's still being discussed what additional they'd have to do. What the learner would have to do, they'd have to do the test 1 and test 2 of the knowledge test, plus the project, plus the professional discussion. But regarding stepping all the way back down and doing the core qualification, that's something that they're discussing at the moment, and we should have more clarity on that. I don't believe that would happen because they don't want to disadvantage the learner anymore than what they're doing, because the prior learning that's taken place on their behalf. Does that answer your question, Shan?
Yeah, that does make it clear. Thank you.
Is that okay? I mean, it's only for this academic year because it's learners. What they identified what a difficult position for learners that's completing a level 2 framework on the current level 2 framework, stepping into the level 3, and a full-time level 2 learner completing a level 2 diploma. Where can they go next, so to speak? So what they're doing is the QW, they're allowing set trade areas, trade specific areas for one additional year, level 3. All right, so then some learners on full-time level 2 diplomas can either step into the progression or can continue onto the level 3 diploma that's currently there, just for one additional year. It's the learners on the current level 2 frameworks, what they're wanting them learners to step straight across into the level 3, because there's no level 3 framework opportunity available for them. So that's why we've had to put them various mapping documents together on behalf of colleges and training providers. All right?
Right, yeah.
Thanks, Shan. It might be worth noting as well that if you have learners coming in direct apprenticeship straight from school in 2022, you can register them on both the level 3 and the core. You don't have to complete the core before you're allowed to register them on the level 3. You register them on a framework, and both those qualifications are part of that framework. So it wouldn't stop you registering the learner on the level 3 in 22.
Right, okay. I think I might need to sort of come back once this actually goes live and we can look at the mapping documents and see the reality of what's across what, because I'm still a little confused, if I'm honest.
Right, okay. Right. I mean, the main thing is any new learner starting this academic year, starting in September 2022, directly into apprenticeship, they will have to do the core qualification and the level 3 qualification. So what they would do is they would have to register for both as part of that framework.
Right.
It's only the legacy it's only the legacy ones, which is the current level 2 diploma learners that's finishing this academic year, and learners who's completing the current level 2 frameworks this academic year. Because what the problem is, a learner completing the level 2 diploma, there's nowhere else for that individual to go unless they step across to the progression. What QW are allowing for 1 year only, from September 2022 for the full academic year, is them level 2 learner diploma learners. They can either step into the level 3 diploma on trade specific areas only, depending on the numbers that's actually in there. So what we're looking at is your bricklaying ones, your paint and decorating, your plastering, and your site carpenters. They're still wanting to offer that level 3 diploma for 1 additional year. So full-time learner can go that way. But the thing is, if you get a level 2 full-time learner now gaining employment, this academic, so it finishes in June, July, then they get employment, then they will come back in September 2022 onto the new level 3 qualification. What the mapping documents will help provide a clear mapping from what that learner has already achieved on prior learning. So centres then can pick that up and run with it and top that additional learning up that's required.
Right, okay.
But please email me afterwards, ian.roberts@cityandguilds.com, and we're more than happy to have a discussion with you.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you for your time.
No problem at all.
No problem, you're welcome. Any other questions from anyone? We'll close if not. As Ian said, you can always contact us anyway after today if there's still things we've not explained correctly. there are some things still being ironed out, and we can keep you up to date with those. But if not, thank you very much for your attendance. We hope you found it helpful. Please do follow those links and share some feedback. And we look forward to seeing you at the next events or webinars. Thank you very much, everyone. So there's no final questions. I can't see any coming in. So big thanks to the panel today, Ian and Jason, for helping present this presentation. We'll now close if there's nothing further to add, and we'll see you all soon. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you. Bye.